Folding sidebar menus using JavaScript. You've already learned a little bit of jQuery, but before we dive more into jQuery, we're going to do this project using plain JavaScript. And then we'll do the exact same project using jQuery. And we're going to do this with a few different projects so you can see the difference between jQuery and JavaScript and how they work together and some of the differences between the two. In this project, we're going to have just a simple page, and on the side of the page we have a menu. And when you click the menu item, it folds down and shows the submenu. And when you click a submenu that's, while one is already open, it'll close the other one. So that will limit the number of options your user has to see. And sometimes that can be really helpful for users in terms of cognitive load. You only want them to see a certain number of options at once. So we'll look at how to build this in plain JavaScript first, and then we'll do the exact same project using jQuery. Just a few notes about the markup. If you look at the markup, you'll notice that the article comes first and the aside comes second. This is often important for search engine optimization. We want the important content further up the page. We'll use CSS Flexbox with row reverse to display these next to each other, but put the navigation on the left. Generally, we want that first article, the article higher up on the page. Also notice that the navigation is following a very common markup scheme with the menu inside of a menu. This embedded unordered list goes entirely inside the list item for the parent item. This is important to get in HTML. So let's take a look at this really quickly. So over here I have my page open, and you can see the article comes first, right after my main section opens there. And then the navigation is an unordered list with list items. But notice this list item is entirely enclosed in the parent list item. This is really important to get right, and a lot of web developers get it wrong. The only items you're allowed to have as children of an ordered or unordered list are list items. So this unordered list needs to be entirely enclosed in this parent list item. And these are the items that will show on the page. So over here, currently without any JavaScript, these items are just showing here. Okay, so that kind of gets us started. And we're using just a little bit of CSS here as demonstrated here on the styles to make to display flex for this main element, but use flex direction row reverse to get the navigation on the left and the main content on the right. Okay, great. Now with all that in place, let's get started with making this project work. The basic strategy of the script is that the submenu will be initially hidden, and then when you click on a parent menu, it will show the submenu. This will be accomplished by having JavaScript swap these two classes on the submenu when you click the parent menu. Initially, the submenus, the unordered lists that are inside the list items, that are inside the unordered lists, don't have the hide menu class on them. So our first challenge is to write a loop that adds this class to all the submenus in the unordered list. And you'll see over here in the styles that these two styles are already here. Hide menu, display none, and show menu display block. So your first challenge is to write a little script. Down here we've got script tags. See if you can write a script that goes in and applies that submenu to that hide menu class. We want to apply that to all of these unordered lists. So they have class hide menu on them. See if you can do that. And when we come back in the next video, we'll see how I did that. Were you successful? Were you able to do it? Let's do it together. So down here, I'm just going to make a variable, var submenus. And I'm going to assign that to document.querySelector all And what I want to get are the UL, LI, UL. Oops, there we go. Because these, what I want are these unordered lists that are inside the list items that are inside the parent unordered list. So that's what I want to get here. So I'm going to get these, all of these, and put them in here. And then I just need a loop for var I equals 0, while I is less than submenus dot length I plus plus. Curly brace. I put these extra spaces in here. They're probably not necessary, but to me it makes it a little bit easier to see this and read what's going on here. But this should be review for you, hopefully at this point. And okay, so now here what we need to do is we need to put that submenu on each of these. So I'm going to say submenus dot square bracket I. So each one of these, it's going to go through each one of these and then do class name equals hide menu. I think I have that right. Over here it's hide menu, display none. And that should go through and put that class on all of those elements. Let's see if I did that right. Over here, I'll go check my document here. And this is exactly what I did. Class name, hide menu. So let's see if that actually works. We save that, come over here and refresh the page. And look at that. All those menus are hidden. They're set to display none. I could do inspect. And you could come in here and see, click on this menu here, or this one of these menus here. You can see it's got hide menu on it. It's got that class on there. So that's working great. Your next challenge is to add a click handler to the main links. These links here have a class on them of menu link. And so we want to gather those, and when you click on them, we want something to happen. So we're going to need an event handler for that. For now, just pass the event object and prevent the default behavior that would result from clicking the link. But see if you can do that on your own without looking at my solution, but we'll do it together in the next video. Let's do this together. So first we need a variable var menu links equals document dot query selector all. And what do we want to get? We want to get these links here, this class menu link for this one, this one, this one, and that one. We want those. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to do dot menu link. So that will get those and put them in there. And then we need a loop. We need to do a loop here. So we need a for var I equals 0. While I is less than menu links dot length I plus plus. Hopefully you're getting used to writing loops now. And then in here, we're going to put an event listener on each one of these. So menu links, square bracket I, dot add event listener. When you click, we're going to run an event. We're going to run a function. Not run an event, we're going to run a function. So we've got this function in here that runs. And then for right now, all I want to do is pass in the event property, event object there, and do event.prevent default. So that's all we really need for right now. But I've added an event listener for each of these. And you could test it by adding, console log or an alert or something like that. Alert clicked, something like that. So now if I go over here and test this, when I click on one of these, I get clicked, or this one. So we've put an event listener on all of these through the loop. Okay, great. So we've got that, and that's working exactly the way we want it to work. Hopefully, you got something like this as well. Again, this is review, but it's always good to challenge yourself and see if you can do these small pieces. It's the best way to learn JavaScript. The next thing to get into is the this keyword in JavaScript. And if you've looked up stuff on JavaScript online, you can find a lot about the this keyword. It can be pretty confusing. But in the context in which we're going to use it in this course, the this keyword is fairly simple. It basically means the menu that we clicked on. We've added an event listener to all the menus. So now when you click on one, we get an alert. But you can only click on one menu at a time. So I want to know which one I clicked on. I need to know that. And the this keyword can help us figure that out. So I'm going to make a variable here called this menu, and I'm going to assign the keyword this to it, which means this menu, the one that I clicked. And then I'll console log or alert out this menu.innerHTML, and you'll see that we can actually get the HTML of the menu that we clicked. So let's do that really quickly over here. So instead of an alert here, I'm going to say var this menu equals this. And this is a keyword. That means it refers to the thing that was clicked. And then we could do either console log or we could do an alert. I'm just going to do an alert since we were working with alert. Alert this menu dot inner HTML. Not inside quotes here because this is JavaScript, not a string. Alert, sorry. This menu. Can't type. Dot inner HTML. All right, this menu.innerHTML. Let's see what that gets us. So if I now do this and come over and test this, refresh the page, when I click this menu, I get an alert that says menu 1. So it's telling me what's the inner HTML of the menu that I clicked. Menu 2, menu 3, menu 4. You could do console log 2. Either way is fine. All right, great. So we've got that. So now we can get this menu using this keyword. But really what we want to get to is the parent ordered list. So over here, we've added a click handler onto when you click one of these links. But really what we want to get to is this list item so that ultimately we can get down into the unordered list inside of here. John, please take out that last part and record from here. The next challenge is, now that we know that which menu we've clicked on, we want to get to the unordered list inside that menu item. So in other words, what we want over here is we have something that tells us that we've clicked on this anchor tag. But really what we want to get is this unordered list here, because this is the unordered list that we added the class hide menu to. And now we want to change that class to show menu. So in other words, we need to get from this link down to here. And the way we do that is through the parent. So we can find out who is the parent of this item, and then on that parent do query selector to find the unordered list that's inside the parent list item. So see if you can do that part on your own, going into to try to do that challenge on your own. And then on the next video, I'll show you my solution for that. Were you able to figure that out? Hopefully you were. This is what I did because I want to I'm getting this, I've got the anchor tags as my event listeners for when I click on them, but I want to really get to this UL. So down here, what I did instead is, instead of just this, I can do this dot parent node dot query selector UL. And that should get me the actual unordered list that's in the parent of the anchor tag that I clicked on, and the parent is the list item. So I'm going up to the parent list item and looking for the UL that's inside that list item. And let's leave this, we'll leave this alert here, but you could make it console log if you prefer. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to save that and then come over here and refresh my page. And now when I click on menu 1, I'm getting all of these list items. It looks kind of messy here, but it is actually working. Or if I click on menu 2, I'm getting all of these list items, 2B, 2C. So I've got this whole unordered list that I'm getting here. It might be easier to see it if you do it in a console log. So we could change this to console.log. And then let's see what it does now if we view the console log, inspect. And I'm going to move this down to the bottom actually. And switch over to the console. And when I click that, oops, I forgot to refresh. There we go. So I'm getting the inner HTML there. So that's great. So that's all working really well. Now that you have that, your next challenge is, now we've got that submenu, your next challenge is, how do we change the class in that submenu to show menu? Currently it's set to hide menu. We wanted to set it to show menu. How do we do that? Try to figure out how you can do that on your own, and then come and see the answer on the next video. I'll show you how I did it. Were you able to figure out the challenge? I hope you were. It shouldn't have been too difficult, but sometimes you have to work through these things. What we could do instead is we could use this menu and do class name equals show menu, so that we're applying that show menu class to that item, to that particular menu. And that should work. Let's go over and see what happens over here if we refresh our page here. Close the inspector. If I click on this, it shows the menu. Now you'll notice we're not quite done yet, because if I click another one, it'll show that menu, and it doesn't close the menus. We want to be able to open the menus and close them. And really we want to make it so that when you click on a menu, if there's another one that's open, it will close it before it opens this menu. So that's kind of the next thing that we need to figure out how to do. But this little piece of the script is pretty simple here, right? We have a menu that's using this keyword that says, go get the parent node, go get the unordered list inside that parent. The parent would be the list item. Go get the unordered list inside the list item, and then just change the class name from hide menu to show menu. That seems pretty straightforward. Okay, great. So hopefully you got that. You got this kind of answer here. And we can open the pages, we can open the menus, but we can't close the menus. So the next challenge is, if the menu has the class set to hide menu, set it to show menu. Otherwise, set it to hide menu. So this is your challenge, is how to make it so that it actually functions properly. And there are two methods that you can use to help you with this. There's a method called class list, and there's contains that will help you figure out whether the menu has hide menu or show menu on it. See if you can do it on your own, and then if you are successful or not, just come back to the next video and you'll see how I did it. Were you able to get the answer to this challenge? It's a little bit trickier because this one required you to look some stuff up. We haven't used class list or contains before, so hopefully you went to the MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network, which is the authoritative resource on these types of technologies, and looked up something like element class list to sort of see how it works, and it gives you some examples on here. Also, there's another page on contains, and so you can actually find contains. Contains does the DOM token list and returns a Boolean if true. So token list.contains. So we can combine these two things together to make this work. So let's try it together on our code over here. And if you're able to get it to work, that's great. If not, this will help you out. So instead of this, I'm just going to comment that out, or you could just delete it. But in there, we're going to put an if statement, if. And what we're going to check for is if this menu dot class list dot contains, and we're going to look for hide menu, like that. So if this is going to return true or false. Does it contain hide menu? If it does contain hide menu, then we're going to do this. Put that in there. Else, if it doesn't contain it, then we're going to do this, but we're going to do hide menu. And that will allow us to open and close the menus. Let's save this and come back and check our page over here. So if we should be able to open the menu and close the menu. Unfortunately, though, we can still open multiple menus. And really what we want to be able to do is to be able to, when we click on one menu, make sure all the other menus get closed. Any other menu that's open is closed, so we can reduce cognitive load on our user, and they can open only one menu at a time and be sort of presented with only one set of options at a time. So hopefully you got something like this on your own. And if you didn't, hopefully my explanation helps. But I recommend, if you're not getting these challenges, I recommend going through this lesson a few times to the point where you really can do them without looking at my answers. It'll really help you learn JavaScript so much more. Okay, so your next challenge should not be a too difficult one, but basically what we need to do is close all the menus and then run this if statement. So before this if statement happens, this if else even happens, we want a loop that closes all the menus. So see if we can add a loop that closes all the menus before showing the submenu with the parent menu being clicked. Hopefully you were able to get this working this way so that when we click on these, they open. We can open them and we can close them. But now the challenge is we want to reduce cognitive load by making it so that our user isn't faced with too many menu options at once. So we want to only show one menu option at a time. So let's go over into the code and see how we could actually do this here. And really what we want to do is we want to duplicate this loop. We want to copy this loop and just stick it inside this if statement. So that will make sure that all of the menus get closed when you click on one that you're opening. And we're going to leave the if statement so that if you're clicking on one to close it, it'll still work. And if it's set to a class name show menu, it'll set it to hide menu. So that's why we want to leave the if statement here. But that should actually work on this. And if we go over and take a look at it and test this, we should see that this is working now. So if I come back here and refresh this, Now when I click on a menu, it opens, but when I click another menu, it will make sure that one's closed and then it will open this one. Plus, I could click on menu 2 and close it. So all of the functionality is now working and it's looking pretty good. So hopefully you came up with this solution as well. Maybe you tried it some different ways or did something different with it, but this is the solution I came up with and it's working pretty well. So now the next challenge is, since we're using this loop twice, we're using the loop here as well as up here, and we don't really want to repeat ourselves. So now your challenge is, how could you make a function that contains this loop and run that function twice? We want to run it once when the page loads and run it once down here inside the if statement. And the function could be called something like hide submenus or something like that. And yeah, so see if you can make that function and make that work. And in the next video, we'll look at my solution for how I made it work. Everything is working, and we could leave the script the way it is, but it's always good to refactor your code and make it better if you can. So let's do that with this final step here, this next step here. We're going to come over here and we're going to make a function. I'm just going to put it here, function hide submenus, like that. I'm going to move this loop so it's inside that function. And hopefully you were able to do this on your own. Tab that in. So now I've got a function called hide submenus. I need to run that function here. I'm going to run it once here. And then I'm going to run it again down here. And it just makes the code a little bit more readable, because in here I can see if it contains hide menu, hide all the submenus, and then show this particular menu. Otherwise, if this one doesn't have classless hide menu on it, set it to hide menu. And that should actually work. So let's just test that really quickly, make sure that that works the way we think it should work. Come back over here and refresh the page. And you can see that it's still working just the way I intended it to work. So that's great. So hopefully you came up with the exact same solution that I came up with and were able to get it to work the way I was able to get it to work. The last challenge for this is just to apply our best practices steps that we've learned in earlier in the course. So hopefully you can do that on your own, but really what we're looking to do is to put the script into a separate file, add the IIFE, the immediately invoked function expression closure, add the use strict directive, change all the variable declarations to const or let. We're using let if the variable changes, like inside the loop over here, these need to be let. And then link the script to the head of the page and be sure to add the defer property inside the script tag so that it loads after the actual content of the page is loaded. So see if you can do all of that, and then come back to the next video and see if you're able to get the same answers I was able to do that I will show you in the next video. Our last step is really to just do some best practice work and kind of clean up our files and make everything work the way we want it to work here at the end. And you should be able to do this on your own, but I will show you how I did it here. First, I'm going to just make a new file. I'm going to call it script.js. That makes sense, right? And then on this file, I'm going to add my IIFE, my immediately invoked function expression with the parentheses, and in there add a function. And the function has its own parentheses and its curly braces. And then we add an extra pair of closing parentheses there. And then we're going to click inside of here and move that down and add our use strict directive here, like so. And then in here, we're going to add all of our code. So we can just take all of this stuff from here, cut it, and paste it inside here. And actually I need to move it back a little bit to get the indentation right. I'm just going to Shift Tab to move that back. And that's looking really good. Okay, great. So now we just need to go through and clear up our function declarations. I'm going to change this to const. That should be const. Down here, because we're in a loop, this needs to be let. So this var needs to be let here. And then down here, this can be const. Sometimes it's kind of nice to have your main variables all up here at the top of the page. So you can define them all at once up here. And we can kind of get rid of some extra space in here. There we go, hide menus, and then this one can be let because that's inside the loop. Down here, this one can be const. And I think that's it. Yeah, that looks really good. Okay, great. So we save that file. Back here in our index file, we can get rid of these script tags from down here, bottom of our page. And instead, we can put them up here in our head. Script src equals quote, and I want my script file here. And I'm going to set it to defer, and then close the script tag. And then always, of course, go back and test it to make sure that you didn't screw something up. Sometimes that happens. And sure enough, everything's working the way it's supposed to be working. We can open the menus, we can close the menus. Only one menu can be opened at a time, which is exactly what I wanted for this particular project. And that's all working great. So there we are. We were able to get our final script working and get everything cleaned up. And here, this is how we could do a project like this in plain JavaScript. In the next part of this lesson, we will look at how to do the exact same script, the exact same kind of thing using jQuery. And you'll see how much shorter and how much more compact that script is.